Please feel free to continue to help yourself to some food and some beverages. Looks like everybody is ready. Thank you so much for joining us here on Thursday night at Central Maine Tech Night. Every Thursday, the second Thursday of the month for this April's Central Maine Tech Night. Can I get I see some new faces in the crowd. Can I get a show of hands? Who's new to Central Maine Tech Night this evening? All right, look at that. That is good. We're beating some averages there. So for new faces, but also for alumni, welcome. Thank you for attending. Central Maine Tech Night is a monthly evening event in the Mid-Maine region that brings technology experts and hobbyists together to network, learn, and share. You may find more information about us online at centralmaine.org at the Tech Night tab, or on Facebook at Central Maine Tech Night. Start by saying thank you to our very generous and kind sponsors. This free event is being presented by Central Maine Growth Council and is sponsored by CGI, Thomas College's Harold Alfond Institute for Business Innovation. Valley Beverage has provided us our drinks this evening. And of course, we're at Bricks Co-working and Innovation Space at 10 Water Street here in downtown Waterville. Thank you so much to Bricks. In addition, I'd like to say hello to the folks watching at home. This Tech Night is being streamed live and can be viewed on Crossroads-TV channel 1301. Thank you to Crossroads-TV for joining this evening. Thank you to Chad and his team. April's Tech Night is the process of patenting a product, a behind-the-scenes look by Zack and Brendan, co-owners of Lockout Labs. The patent process is fraught with paperwork, regulation, and compliance, and significant wait time. How did two local entrepreneurs succeed through the process? Zack and Brendan will share their experience patenting the FT lock, giving you an inside look into the process and advice for your potential application. In addition to that, really want to thank these two hot new young entrepreneurs in one of Mid-Maine's newest startups. Really appreciate it. Engineers by day, startup by night. Just couldn't be more thrilled to have these folks in here. So keep an eye on them, keep an eye on their product. This is a special one this evening. So with no further ado, help me in welcoming the team here.
Thank you very much. So I'm Zack and this is Brendan, and we are Lockout Labs. So I guess we're gonna kind of run through our, I'd say regular talk. I think this is our third time talking.
That's right.
Focusing on the patent. So we're hoping you guys have some questions.
I'm noticing everyone's standing off to this side, but I don't want them to feel like grab a seat if they want to.
Sure. So we went to University of Maine together. We graduated in 2012. We worked together and always hung out doing build nights, project nights, tinkering, things like that on the side. Electronics, anything that we were doing, we've kind of always done basement projects. So that kind of led us into working on this. I don't know if you have anything else you'd like to add.
No, yeah, so like Zack said, we're both tinkerers. We both had, many multi-million-dollar ideas. And it's funny because this is the first one that's actually, taken off, gotten off the ground.
I don't know if we can see any others. Brendan's basement in the middle, that's us bagging some up. And just out of frame would be all of our other ideas that didn't make it to patent. So why we did it. So we joke a lot. We've had a lot of ideas. We've always liked tinkering, making things. This was one of the first devices. The device itself is fairly simple. There's a big need for it, and there's no competition. So we'll probably talk about that a little bit later on. But for our first product, knowing exactly what you need, knowing no one else makes it, and knowing that big companies need it, they just don't know it yet, made it a lot easier to invest time and money into this idea and actually finish it. So kind of what we're talking about is what that finishing is. You have the idea, getting the patent and getting it out there.
So what is it exactly? So I know, Lockout Labs, and we, throw out this lingo like, the utility industry and stuff like that. So what exactly is it? So in our industry, we have these things called test switches right here. So what they do is they basically open up an electrical circuit. So this electrical circuit disconnects the brains of the machine to the actual machine itself. So what was happening before we came along is these would all be closed. So someone would come along, they'd open it up while they're testing the piece of equipment, and they'd apply a piece of tape over the top. So this was time consuming. It was different every single time. It just depended on the person applying the tape. And it really, it was a big waste of time, and it was unsafe. So that was what was supposed to protect, the person that was, out with the piece of equipment from getting hurt if that happened to close and, dumped a bunch of customers or whatever else.
All right. So, I probably skipped ahead a little bit. So we've worked in the electrical industry since we graduated. So I have a lot of field work. Brendan has a lot of design work experience. So it was pretty quick to notice. And a lot of people would joke around, they're surprised no one makes something for this. So you can only hear that so many times before you say, well, I guess nobody does, we'll make it. So starting up, July of 2017, I think we got together for the first time, one of the build nights, and instead of making automated light switches, we said, well, why don't we start working on this physical device? In my head, people were taking baby-proof outlets, cutting them in half and stuffing them in the switch. People were wrapping tape around it. People were just finding anything that had insulation and stuffing it in the switch. So I was like, Brendan, all it's got to be is if we could just make like this plastic cube that fits in that switch, nobody does it. We'll be golden. It just has to fit. And he goes, all right, let me get some ideas. And that's when we started working on the idea. And he'll go through the design iterations and stuff like that. But July of 2017 we started. October, we realized we were excited about it. We were kind of getting the pieces together to build it, and realized that we had to form the LLC. So we formed Lockout Labs. Hang-ups and not hang-ups, but realizing how specific it had to be. We were originally Lockout Labs, 2 different words. Sounds like rambling, but these were all things. We had lots of little things we wanted to appear, and that details like that mattered. We provided the provisional application. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, the right wording. And we actually bought the mold April of 2018. So we worked with a company, gave them the design. We'll talk about that more too. But we had the 3D design Brendan had made, sent it to them, worked with them. There was some back and forth, but essentially bought the mold in April. We were pretty excited considering we bought the mold in April. July, we had our first sale. I was sitting at home. We had the website set up. We had products in the basement. We were quote unquote ready to go. And I get a text message on my phone from an unknown number. And it was, hey, you have a new sale. And I didn't realize it was GoDaddy texting us saying this. So we were very excited. That was our first text message for a new sale. Somebody we didn't know, they'd found us. First wholesale order, September of 2018. Large order from a company. Again, very exciting. And then just in December, we filed the final patent application. So we'll talk about what the differences between the provisional is and timing on that.
So getting off the ground, there was many resources we pulled from. SCORE was one of the first ones. They helped out a lot, helping us form our LLC. Zach and I, going into it, we had no clue, really what we were supposed to do for a business. Like, what paperwork do you file? What are we actually called? And ended up it was an LLC, and SCORE helped us out a lot with that. And they were great. I mean, they basically gave us the paperwork. They had how-tos that we went through. We were able to file our paperwork and become an official business.
Yeah, no, one of the big things was, when do we pay to have something done versus what are we going to struggle through. So from what I hear people talk about, we're fairly opposite of a traditional startup. We had the device, Brendan had done the 3D design. It was finished and ready to sell. So we had to do the startup almost after. We already had the money, the mold, that was done. We just needed to build a business around the product.
The other things.
Sorry.
The other things that were important, QuickBooks, we got that up pretty quick, or Zach did. Zach's our money guy. So Zach loves QuickBooks. You can talk to him about it after. So.
It's bad. It's expensive, but it's.
So that was great. That was a really good way to get everything in order. I'd say the non-fun side of the business, but and then Google. Google was awesome. I don't know the number of times we Googled stuff throughout the entire process, and it led us the right way.
So picking a name, I like to think we put just the right amount of thought into it. It's funny, again, shifting gears from joking around with tinkering and other ideas we've had and coming up with funny names. I think we stopped just at the right amount of seriousness versus being simple for Lockout Labs. Filing papers with the state again. When it came time to file the LLC, it was like, oh, we have to collect sales tax. Oh, that means we're going to have to pay sales tax. Oh, here's all these things that snowballed, and we realized we didn't know what we didn't know. So working with SCORE, she was very good, Linda Dow, about sitting down with us and saying, all right, where are you? What have you done? And saying, okay, here's the pieces you're missing, templates, here's the order you need to go in, here's what you don't have. So really comforting feeling. And again, it was nice in the background to know we had this product ready to go. Bank account.
Yeah, and then the last two, the ones that, were pretty simple and straightforward, and opening a bank account. That was a fun one because we had a place to put or spend money from, I guess, was more like it. And then create an operating agreement. That was also a fun exercise. So Zach and I got to choose our roles in the company. I think we're both CEO and both all these other things. So
I think it's still on our to-do list to finish that, actually. Yeah.
We got to award ourselves shares. That was a fun thing. But yeah, so it was, we tried to take it seriously, and we did, but we also, had some fun with it along the way.
Yeah.
So.
But even the bank account, again, one of the, I think we've gotten, spoil's not the right word, but we were able to fund it ourselves. So we didn't, coming into this, we don't have any loans or anything like that. So the bank account was different for us when we're sitting down with the banker. Like, talking about lines of credit, and here's the application process for that. And so a lot of that stuff we got to kind of skip over. Because again, we already own the mold, we already had the money for the patent, and we're going.
So manufacturing design. So we did all the design in-house. So that was a lot of the reason Zach's mentioned earlier that we funded everything ourselves. So we didn't have to outsource any of our design, which was really nice because design is very expensive. And then we also took on the manufacturing ourselves too, which was a very big learning curve. So.
Did you guys do it all with a 3D printer?
We didn't do it all with a 3D printer. We did our prototyping with 3D printer. So, and yeah, so that's so what goes into the design. So we went through a couple pieces of software. We started with AutoCAD, and we moved on to Autodesk Inventor. So what happened is we started with an educational license because that's what we were working off from. And then when we realized that it was serious, we're like, well, we got to find an actual piece of software that we can, do this legitimately, and it ended up being Fusion 360. So those are just, a 3D design software that allows us to build our part. So up in the upper right-hand corner, so that's our final part. You see them strewn throughout the tables and stuff. So that's what we actually sent to be molded. And right below it, so this is one of my 3D printers. So we did a lot of prototyping on that. And then I can show you in a second, but after that kind of ran its course and wasn't accurate enough, we went to some professional services.
Yeah, and I think that was one of our actual unique challenges that was kind of a big one. The 3D printing was great, and I think a lot of times when we talk to people about this, they're like, oh, this is a perfect opportunity to use a 3D printer for prototyping, and it was, but we couldn't give any of the 3D printed parts out to have people test them. for fear of them breaking off in the test switches, things like that. So strength was a big concern for us.
So the next few slides, so this is just an iteration of design, is what I have going on here. So this is actually our first prototype. This is the one that Zach's talking about. We were in the basement that night. He's like, hey, we need this wedge that goes in. So I created this, and then you'll see it's going to keep progressing.
Which this is already more involved and more elaborate than I had pictured. So already starting with this, I'm like, oh, dude, you knocked it out of the park. See if it goes. Oh. How many? Oh,
there
did
we
I
go.
skip over? There's some subtle differences.
No, you got it.
Okay.
So yeah, so I mean then, Zach saying that was perfect. I was like, well, let's keep going. So we added a handle. You can see a little hole here. We can talk about what that is later that, secures it in place. Sneak peek. So same thing, except red. So we were experimenting with some colors, make it look a little bit better. So now we have a more curved design. It's getting a little bit more streamlined. It's hollow, so we're kind of moving more towards a moldable product now. And this is still printed, in my basement on that basic printer.
Yeah, so at this point, so another big point, kind of some of the thought process with this design, like he's saying, we're starting to talk to people about the patent, and we're working with the mold company a little bit as far as design goes. So we're getting feedback from the mold company, trying to figure out how specific we have to be with the patent, because we still haven't showed anyone this design yet, because it's somewhat easy to duplicate. So we haven't showed anyone. We kind of have to get it right the first time for our mold, and we have to make it moldable and have it finished to a state where we can get a patent on it, where if someone comes back and says, oh, I wish you'd change this, it has to fit within the patent. So that's kind of that point.
And then just more iteration. So this is the point, so we switched over to professional 3D printing service at this point. So this is significantly better quality. Like you can still see the layer lines. We have all those samples up here. But this allowed us to actually test a lot of our clearances on the switch itself. So that was a nice change to be able to see what our tolerances actually look like. Then same thing, so just a little design change in that next rev. And then, so this is the final, or one of the final shapes of it. We made some more changes after we talked to the molding company. But the next few slides are just gonna be a couple different colors.
So orange was our big starting color, because this is a safety device. We wanted it to stand out. Yes.
At this point, did you know that your name was Lockout Labs?
If you
Or
look,
were you gonna put your name on it?
yeah, it's in. If you look closely, it's hard to see with that resolution of printer, but you can see it up in the top. This is for the professional 3D printing, was done under the LLC and paid for them.
And we talked, because that was a interesting thing, is do we put the name on the product? We didn't know if we should just put our regular name or if we should put .com. We've got customers since then by putting .com on there, and they, followed it to our website, which was, a very nice change, so. Yeah.
Right, we didn't know it was going to cost more for a mold that's, in my mind, very precise, to be able to show that and have it readable, things like that, which ended up, once we told them our tolerances, they were like, oh, yeah, no, that's fine, we can do that.
So this is our first professional molded part. This is a funny story. So, Zach and I, we spent a lot of money in the mold, and we're waiting for these. So we're getting 5 samples in the mail, and we're waiting, and we're following them, right from the manufacturer.
Hit refresh on FedEx every
Oh, it was bad.
from China.
So they get in, and we're opening up the package, and they're missing the text. And Zach and I were like, wow, this is bad. So, I mean, we emailed them back and we fixed it, but it was a big, I opened up the file, I was looking at the file, I was like, did I mess up? Like, what happened? So it was a really,
Yeah, it was funny how it got handled. It was the first time anything had really gone wrong. And so yeah, we worked through it. It wasn't, I don't know if we ended up, did you find the picture of it? Is it in the end, the picture of the mold?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So more of the finished.
It with the text, yeah.
Yeah, with the text.
And then this, yeah, just a variation on the color. So we have 3 major colors. We have red, yellow, and orange. Yeah. So our mold, so neither Zach or I have ever done molding before. It was a very big learning curve. So I sent my part to the molding company. I was like, here's our part, have fun. And they sent me this like, what was it, like a 20-page PowerPoint with all the deficiencies on the part.
PowerPoint.
So we had all these deficiencies. Like I learned about draft angle, which means that it needs to be tapered to come out of the mold. So I had, another, week of basically every night trying to fix the part in order for it to be molded. And this is, example of some of the pictures that we got back from the molding company. It was a really fun process. So like in the upper left up there, they show where they inject the plastic. Down here on the bottom left, so everywhere that's red is a sink point. So the plastic's so thick that when it cools off, it's actually going to sink in, contract, and it can actually change some of the tolerances. So we had to address all those. Some of them we left because we figured that they weren't going to be that big of a deal to our final design.
He's using the term "we" very loosely at this point. This was definitely Brendan's time to shine, but keep going.
And then, so in the upper top or upper right, it's how the mold met. It's kind of confusing. It took me a long time to do this. It looks simple, but it was a big change in our mold. So yeah, and then down here, this is our actual mold right here. It's significantly smaller than I ever thought it was going to be. And actually, the good thing about them forgetting the text is we would have never seen our mold, and then they, sent us a picture of it saying, "Here's your text."
That note on the picture is the guy at the plant saying, "All right, we got it this time." He's making the note to ICO saying, "All right, we put the letters on." But it looked a lot more homemade than I thought it was gonna. So the patent process. We'll see what we got. Yeah, so it's a fairly small, fairly simple device that I thought industry was going to use. There was no competition, and we really wanted to keep it that way. I was pretty convinced, again, we hadn't shown anyone, so we have this mold purchase, we have the final product, and we're ready to start doing it. But much like everything else, we didn't know where to start with the patent. It's one of those things where we have these ideas leading up to now, and we're like, oh yeah, we'll get a patent. And then the day comes and we sit down, and we're like, all right, where do we start? So I'd heard the term patent pending, we both had, and for some reason kind of thought and knew we wanted to start there. We got pointed toward Bowen Mathers down in Portland. And we kind of came to the agreement together that this was definitely one of those times in the business where we were going to pay someone to help us. Not even from a not wanting to do the work perspective, but to me this was the biggest part of the business. If we had a weak patent, the people who sell the test switches themselves, if they started making it, there's no way we can compete with the prices. They have patent lawyers, they have manufacturing set up. So we had to make sure that it was ours. So we went to them. Right off the bat, I felt like a wet blanket. I was not disappointed, but I was getting pretty discouraged with the patent process when we started talking to the lawyer about what it got us. The very first thing was, by applying for a patent, it's not coming right out and saying no one else has it. It's saying, yes, this device is patentable. So we had a lot of discussion and decisions to make up front. How much energy and money are we going to put into searching for this device? It's up to us to see if anyone else already sells it. Not only sells it, but has a patent. He mentioned it's fairly common to apply for a patent, get it, start manufacturing, and someone else says, oh, we actually came up with this 10 years ago, we just never went to manufacturing with it. And we're like, oh man. Because the whole time I said, well, I would have seen it if someone sold this. So it was up to us, again, searching through patents. There are, and this is where we get into kind of the nuts and bolts of the patent, there are companies that specialize in market research and patent searches, anywhere from $300 to $5,000. You give them your idea, describe what it is, and they search the internet, the patents, give you a more concrete answer. Nowhere at any point in this process is anyone going to say, no one else has this, you guys own it, cut and dry. So we said, all right, our biggest risk, again, I know no one's selling it. Someone may have a patent for it. And our patent lawyer was very good about saying, it happens, it's not the end of the world. A lot of times what happens is you'll start selling it, they'll approach you and say, hey, we have that patent. And they never wanted to manufacture it. So they'll start, you'll license it from them essentially. Like, oh, well, you have customers, you have molds made, perfect. We did the patent pending. Again, we needed to be able to show people the idea without being finished. So we filed for a provisional patent application, and that bought us a year. It basically holds your spot in line. It says, we officially had this idea on this date, so we can start showing people testing the market, make minor changes to the shape, form factor, things like that, and then apply for the final process after. So that gave us a year to test the product, which sounds home free, but keep in mind we still already have the mold purchased. We already have, I think, roughly 2,000 of them right off the bat.
Yeah.
I think we ordered pretty quick, so not ideal, but possible.
So we put a lot of eggs in, basically we just, put everything out there and it could have all gone south,
Right.
so, yeah.
I'm not quite sure what we have on the next.
Quick question.
Yes.
Patent pending, like how much leeway do you have in the design? Like could somebody have come behind you, saw what you had, made something a little more refined?
You'll see later on there's what's called claims in the patent. So again, it was more complicated than I thought. You can't just, it's not that someone can't make the test switch like that. There's certain things about it that we have to say, you can't do this.
Okay.
So you'll see the claims we have, and we basically had to work with the lawyer to come up with claims that were broad enough that no one could make something that would do this, but specific enough that you can't just tell the patent office, you can't make anything that keeps the switch open, because they're going to kick it back. And if it's bad enough, we lose our place in line. If they say there's no fixing this, we've lost that place in line. I don't know if there's anything else.
No, that's. Yeah. So should you get a patent? Zach, touched on a lot of the, reasons why you should or shouldn't. But the big thing is to, kind of weigh your expected market, gain, and everything that's up there. Do you have enough time to get to market? The cost to produce, cost to patent, like all these go into that scale to tell you if it's the right choice or not. And the first meeting we had with our patent attorney, we went and sat down in his office. He actually sat us down and he's like, so is this going to sell? And he's asking us all these questions. And it was, I think Zach and I were both taken aback a little bit because he was kind of challenging our idea. Yeah, right? And so, but he was doing exactly this. He was making sure that we weren't throwing our money away. So he was kind of vetting our idea and, making sure that we thought about this in the right way. Because I would assume that he probably sees, a significant amount of people that come in and say, well, this is patentable, like I want a patent tomorrow. Yeah. And honestly, they'd be throwing away a significant amount of money without any vetting.
Yeah, he was very good. They have, without getting into financials, they basically say, we have a couple different tiers of patents depending on how complicated the device is, and they, more or less have a fixed cost for it. And he was great. We met with him. We had phone calls and emails, and he wasn't bringing up money. We didn't see the bill at the end. He's like, oh, remember that half-hour time you guys swung by the office and showed me something? And he stuck right to it. So that was all built into it. So as much as we didn't get a good feeling about the patent itself, I definitely loved working with Bohan Mathers down in Portland. Oops, it might be line of sight. There we go.
Can you get this? Yeah, you can.
This might be a little backwards on the reader. Yeah. Right. So we knew the amount of time he was going to save us. He's got templates for these forms. He knows what to do, and he knows red flags that we don't. For the price he was quoting us, I wouldn't say it was a no-brainer, but we knew we were going with the patent. So again, I guess I did that completely backwards. So this is back to what I was saying about the patent search. Again, cost versus benefit. Are you going to pay someone else to do it? That was possibly going to be more expensive than the patent, to have someone tell us no one has a patent on this. So we did not.
No.
We did not go that route.
But we did our own. I mean, so Zach and I, we started with the test switch itself, and we kind of worked our way out. and we would search terms, we'd search Google, we'd search, we spent, what, 2 or 3 weeks, pretty heavily searching, trying to figure out if anyone had anything that was similar. And there is. I mean, there's always a similar device, but then you can, it may not apply to this switch, or it may not. So you really got to read through it. We learned a lot about patents in that, amount of time. But it was really boring and really dry. So I'm not going to sugarcoat that. It was dry.
Yeah.
So
yeah, this was probably the only part of the business process that was really no fun. And the other a lot of people who looked at it said, "Oh, I've seen that before," and they're picturing a circuit breaker in a house. They make a lockout for it. Like that's the same thing. I'm like it's not. We had some grant applications where the guy said, basically, you can't do a grant application for this. I think it's already an invention, and I think you guys were way off. But in our mind, it was very obvious from working with them day to day that this is very different.
Did your legal counsel do it soup to nuts for you guys, or did they tee it up and you guys filed it?
So they did like mostly soup to nuts. We did most of the writing, but he would take back the bulk. I mean, so we would dictate to him basically what our patent was about. He'd give us a rough draft. We'd keep going back and forth. And he was great. He was very technical. So it was a really good process, but then we'd put our lingo from our industry in there, and that helped out a lot.
Yeah, so we saved, in the $600 ballpark having professional drawings already done by Brendan. So some people come to him and they've sketched something on a napkin and say, I'm going to patent this. Well, again, we were a little backwards. We already had the design, everything, dimensions and everything like that. But again, he had an engineering degree, so he knew what questions to ask. He knew what he didn't know about what he was looking at. He asked how it functioned, so he knew the words to use.
So this is just an example of one of the questions he asked us. So this is from the U.S. patent website. So basically you can't patent it if the invention was patented. I mean, that's kind of obvious. Described in a printed publication or in public use, on sale, or otherwise available to the public before the effective filing date of the claimed invention. So this was another thing that Zach and I were kind of racing against, was we didn't want to put our product out there because as soon as it becomes common knowledge and people start using it, it actually becomes unpatentable because everyone knows it exists, and then someone else can go ahead and make it. So that was a big, I think we kind of knew that, but we didn't know it was actually in writing in that manner. So that was a really good thing to know right out of the gate, is keep it under your hat until you start the process. And this is it's sort of repetitive of the first one. So it's basically, was it described in the patent? And basically, like, did you scoop it from someone is kind of what that's saying. So if Zach and I had filed and someone that we worked with or seen the product decided to go and patent it, like that would disqualify them because we had already hopped in line with our patent pending. So there's 3 different types of patents, and this is, we learned a lot that first meeting that we went to. So the first type of patent is a utility patent. That's what we have. So you're going to patent something useful. It's a machine, and it's usually like a device or something like that. So that's going to afford you about 20 years of protection, and it's the most common type of patent. So the next one, so design patent, it's a little bit less common. So as you see, it's basically it's a piece of art. It's an ornamental design, and people I guess you could patent SpongeBob technically, like his likeness or something.
But that's also one of the other things to know, is one of the things we didn't realize to ask when we approached Bowie Mathers. They're very, very different patent applications and wording, and the people who do them. So they knew to pair us up with someone who had an engineering degree, someone who understood, what is an electrical circuit. Opening it breaks it. That's huge. We need to focus on that. So patent attorneys will have a background, hopefully, in the field you're patenting, because you need someone who, again, knows what questions to ask and knows how to change your words, and in order to do that, they have to understand what it is. So you have to be able to explain to them what it is.
So the third one I won't spend a lot of time on, but basically a plant. So like Monsanto or something, they can patent a plant is the final type of patent.
So this is the new part. We're not going to read the patent, obviously. There's a few slides with some quotes. But just the blocks and some of the wording, seeing how he laid it out. And as silly as it sounds, you have to name your patent application. It's not crucial, but we had issues, the term FT is kind of like a Kleenex. When you ask someone for a Kleenex, you're asking for a tissue. But Kleenex is a brand. It's just so common that people call them Kleenex. Well, FT stands for Flexi Test, which is one company's version of this switch. So FT is technically copyrighted. So we're like, until we get an answer, avoid putting that in our patent. He said essentially it didn't matter as long as you avoid things like that. So we just called it the switch blocking device.
And then the other thing to remember too, going through this whole thing. So basically all of this text, and we'll tell you when what I'm saying doesn't apply, doesn't actually apply to the patent itself. So most of this is so the patent inspector can understand what our invention is. All that really matters is a couple paragraphs at the bottom, that's our actual claims.
So it's looking back on it, kind of funny, something that seems so simple. You have to explain it to someone who hopefully has never heard of it because you're patenting it, and explain it so well that he has to then explain it to someone else who has also never heard of it. So there was quite a bit of time spent talking with him. Again, this gets fairly dry, but this is our wording here. Basically, again, explaining to them, here's what you're looking at. More importantly, here's what it's used for. More importantly, here's that thing that it's used for. So this is where we're relying on him to keep it specific enough to be patentable, but vague enough that someone can't make one of these, that's a different color. It's like, well, you guys technically said red in your patent. Little things like that. Again, summary of the invention. We, talking and things like that, explaining what it is. When we go to say who we are and what the device is. Well, this was when it was For All the Marbles, and again, a lot of this we're leaning very heavily on him to tell us, like, no, you got to be a little more specific, or don't say that. Don't use the word zip tie, because someone could make this same thing and say, well, you don't have to put a zip tie through it. You can put a piece of string through it. So you don't need that. And again, is explaining to the patent officer. We have to describe what the switch is first, what it's used for, and then explain why they need this.
So our patent, it was made up. So to aid the patent itself, we had a bunch of drawings. So there's a section in it that's brief description of drawings, and that basically just tells you what each drawing perspective is. That's kind of the easiest way to say it. And then the next section, the detailed summary, really gets into calling out each one of these individual call-outs.
So we've met with Jeff at this point a number of times, showed him the device. We get this draft back, and he's labeled these drafts that Brendan sent. He goes, can you just give these a check through and make sure the wording's right? And he'll have a side view. He's like, here's the top of the switch. I'm like, oh no, it's not the top. I'm like, does that matter? And this, but even after all that explaining, he's like, oh, this is the top. It's like, no, it's not how you hold it. You're holding the switch upside down. Detailed description. Yeah.
So it's like even more in depth. So we're actually talking about like the back wedge of the device and the arms of the device. And it's like, it's the really dry, nitty gritty nuts and bolts of what our product was, is what that section. And this goes on for what, another 2 pages?
Yeah.
Yeah, so.
Heretofore, herein, rather, lots of those. So then the claims. So working with him to decide what the claims are. Claim 1, the claims essentially build off each other, and we'll run through those just really quick. But again, claim 1 has to be, here's what it is. What part of this are you patenting? You can't just say, you can't make something that blocks a switch. How it works, using terms like blocking wedge, the arm, But again, focusing on the fact that it does block the switch. The claims get shorter as you go on because, again, you'll notice, even just looking at the wording real quick, device of claim 1, and then claim 3 says of claim 2. So you're getting more specific. So the patent office can start rejecting from the bottom up, I guess would be the easiest way to explain it, and say, no, you can't do that. But your patent's still valid because claim 1's still vague enough. So again, another heartbreak time. He said usually, these may take a year to 2 years for them to review, and it's probably going to get kicked back. We're probably going to have to change some wording. It's like, oh crap. So knowing to leave us wiggle room, knowing that's coming, that was another big benefit. So again, they're getting more precise. Claim 4, again, got rid of the word zip tie, size to accept a fastener, things like that. Keep it broad and specific.
Zach, in this time frame right now, even if it were to get kicked back, you cannot still provide that publicly? Or how does that play into that?
Yeah, so starting off, because we're doing the provisional application, we're making this application not only so that the patent office can look at it and accept it or reject it on specific parts, but we have to leave it open enough in case we want to change the design a little bit. So we're fighting these battles we didn't know we had. What if we have to get rid of the arm? What if it doesn't fit? If we lose the arm on this thing, was that claim 1 if we'd done it ourselves because we're the most proud of it, and now the whole patent's gone. So this is provisional.
Provisional, you can put it out publicly or not?
You can, yeah.
You can.
Yeah.
That's the reason to do provisional.
Once this provisional hit the patent office, they don't even look at it, but they know they got it from us. They know the name of it. They know the filing number. We get a date. So we start showing people, well, 3 months after we file this, someone from the utility goes in and says, hey, this guy just came in and showed us this patent. I'm going to beat him to the patent office. So it's not patented, but
It allows you to get into that market to kind of.
right.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
And the big thing to note here, and we didn't really mention it earlier, so our provisional patent application and our final patent look very, very much alike.
Thank God.
Yeah, when we went for a final patent process, our lawyer's like, hey guys, we're a month out, and he emailed us our provisional. He's like, how's this look? We're like, well, it's the same thing. He's like, yeah, like that's what it is. So
Right, we didn't change the mold.
yeah, so we put a lot of work in at the forefront, and that carried through. And actually, we found out too, if we changed a lot of our claims or anything in the provisional patent, then we could actually be disqualified by the patent office because they would have said you actually didn't submit the invention that you thought you were.
Right.
So
So I think Linda Dow, us, and Jeff at the patent at Bowie Mathers, we're the only 4 people that have seen this still going through all this because we can't show anyone until this goes in the mail.
But yeah, so I mean, to summarize patents or the patent part. So like I said, like that's what you saw there. It was our final patent excerpts from it, but it was very, very similar to our provisional patent. And we're still actually patent pending. So we submitted our final patent application, and it could take, 2 years?
Yeah, there's every step of the way. For a couple thousand more, you can get it put in the front of the line, so it'll only be 6 months and things like that. But we still don't know. We don't know if it's been accepted, and it sounds like it's probably going to come back to us. So we're gonna be down there again, fine tuning it.
Still, even at this point, we don't know truly if anyone else has invented it yet. We don't know if it's truly patentable. So, but like Zach said before, it might come down to a licensing agreement. There's other stuff that could happen. If the worst did happen.
Right.
So,
and one of the other things too, actually, we didn't talk about because we didn't go this way, but this is just for the U.S. patent. We're talking with him about all these different options. For the provisional patent, you can also, when the provisional patent expires, you can go with an international provisional patent, which buys you another 18 months,
Yep.
I believe it was, worldwide. And then you can file, after that 18 months, you can file with each country. But you have to file with every country you want the patent in. So this only protects us. We went with the United States and Canada. But it's additional money for each one. You're filing with each one. Then you get into, right, depending on, I don't know if anyone's here specifically looking at a patent for themselves, but things to consider, you have to get it translated to their language, filed with them. You have to deal with a lawyer in that country who's licensed and everything. So it started getting very expensive. We have one of the big target markets for us would be in Spain. So we were definitely trying to go that route, but the money was adding up very, very fast. And then you're paying upkeep fees and maintenance fees on patents in each country yearly.
Is Spain because of Iberdrola?
Yes. Yep. Yep.
So yeah, a
Speaking
brief, yeah, our customers. So yeah, our customers, they're big utilities. So we're a business-to-business sales model. We're seeking out like an individual in these huge organizations. So it's kind of a hard market to break into.
Yeah, marketing has been tough. We've done some posts on Facebook, more like, for friends, like, hey, here's what we're up to, not like hey, act now, buy your friends this for Christmas. And we've joked, like, what is Grammy gonna buy a test switch isolator for what? So a lot of things like that, we'll throw that out, but then we use Google Analytics and stuff to look at site traffic, and it spiked. And it's like, well, we did go to school with a lot of engineers who are working for companies, and we got a few sales that day. I'm like, all right, well, maybe we shouldn't, count against every technique before we try it. So talking to people getting out there. But marketing's been tough. Luckily, it's a small enough device. It's easy for us to give out samples without going further into debt. We can give someone a bag of these. But there was a lot of discussion, is how many samples do we give out? We got people at companies being like, hey, can I get some free ones? It's like, well, if it's going to help us. But knowing how many, doing homework on company sizes, which I think if you were going to get to specifically who's buying them, go for it.
No, that's...
Yeah, we've had people order bags of 10 on the website. We've had orders of 3,000 from utilities. So scaling different size boxes to ship, POs, things like that has been quite a learning curve.
What's next? So we're developing more products. We have a couple that are in the works. We're not sure if we're going to go the patent process yet on these. They're going to be kind of like the fail fast, sort of mindset. But we're excited. We have a couple more, and see how it pans out. Yeah.
Yeah. What is next? Yeah. Yeah. I think that's well. Yeah. Yes.
So
thank
yeah.
you.
So yeah, open up to any questions or.
I guess just to go back to the Iberdrola,
Sure.
the parent company of CNP, could they, because you didn't patent it in Spain, or they can still use it in the US, but you're worried that they may make it in Spain and then use that and then use it here?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, so someone could actually, they could scoop our design and make it and sell it to a company that's in another country. So there wouldn't be any patent infringement at that point.
But also, right, so that is twofold, right? If Iberdrola makes them in Spain and they don't sell them to anyone in the United States, they're not infringing on the patent. So we could lose the Iberdrola customers they gave them. But we're also hoping to sell them. Spain and Germany, this is all standardized equipment throughout the world. I mean, that's a market for us, eventually. So it was, how fast can we get this out to market? And how much is that patent going to cost us? And then the $1,000 every year or two to maintain them, when we're probably 4 years away from someone in Spain seeing these. So, the decision was kind of made to keep it our own money, so that we don't have a bill coming up at the end of the month for a business loan. So it takes a lot of the pressure off, because this is not our day job. Also, I don't know if we mentioned we have full-time jobs.
So, and another thing that we didn't really touch on is because these things are so cheap, so we're in this like weird in between where the big companies don't actually want to make them because they don't have the margin. You have to sell a lot of them to make any sort of profit. And then they're too small for someone to really pick up and try to scoop us. So we're in this like weird in between that scooping us is kind of difficult, and it's really hard to get into these companies to talk to them. So like you could put them up on eBay or something, but no one's ever going to come across them. And
they don't know to look for them because it doesn't exist. No one's searching for these unless they're trying to start a company.
right.
Yeah.
You mentioned the value of your legal team as well as I'm sure not wanting to be billed by the hour. Can you just touch on kind of how you vetted the legal team and how you came to the decision of working with who you did?
Go for it.
So we were pointed in the direction of two different firms. I don't remember the name of the first firm, but he wanted to meet with us at Maine Beer Company, which was kind of cool, laid back, right? And he didn't show up, and he didn't call us. So we're sitting there waiting. 15 minutes, half hour go by, so we call him. He goes, "Oh, geez, I got too busy. I couldn't." So that was an easy. We're not going to go with him. Bohem Mathers was the second firm we met with, and he didn't talk about money up front until we asked if we were kind of being billed for these conversations. He's like, no, that's all built in, and got a good feeling from him, and we were kind of chomping at the bit to go with it.
Yep.
So kind of took a gamble, I guess, not a ton of research. Some of the research kind of fell out as you're searching for them. You know, again, being an engineering specific type of patent, there's only so many places that do that, I guess.
Where do you guys see yourselves in 5 years?
On a beach. Yeah. No, we've gone back and forth. I think it's funny, at the beginning of starting this, Brendan was much more company focused and I was product focused, which we didn't realize was a thing people were going to bring up. Like, well, do you want to sell a product or do you want to be a company? I was like, I want to sell these and just sell a lot of them. I'm like, all right, so you're a product. And Brendan said, well, no, we want to leave it open to making other devices. So it'd be fun to design other safety devices once we have clients. And
Yeah.
is that accurate? Yeah.
When you guys started the conversation, you almost sounded apologetic for doing it a different way, but it hit me like that's exactly the way we need to talk with entrepreneurs to do it, right? So you knew there was a market, you knew there was a solution, a problem, you immediately addressed it and said, hey, I think I have something. Then you went back and developed the company around it. Because the other side is the build it and they will come, right?
Yeah.
You start building the company, you're doing all this stuff, and then lo and behold, you didn't solve the problem, nor do you have a market. So I would tip my hat to you guys and say, you guys are spot on. That's the lean startup, quote unquote, played out almost perfectly by you guys. So
Thanks.
yeah, say that proudly next time.
Yeah, thank you. No, that was, yeah. We for us, it worked out great. It was something we had the tools to design and knew we wanted, so.
It was a very stressful few months of not telling anyone, and Zach and I keep writing checks, and so.
So it came time to send the design out to the mold company. We're like, yeah, right, so they can steal it. So the original designs, the file was called sailboat clip. So we were like, we're not even going to call it FT lock. We're going to call it. So no one's going to even know what they're looking at here. So we thought we were being very sneaky about it. So we still like to, sometimes we'll still call it the sailboat clip. So for almost a year, we called it that.
So when you had your part, so you then send that out to a manufacturer of a mold, and they make that mold around your part so that you can replicate it as many times. Is that the process? Is that how you guys did it, or?
So you send out the 3D file, so they have the actual.
CAD drawing of the part.
Yeah, so they actually have it in 3D. So they're actually able to mill it out, replicating your part exactly. So we also, one of the slides up there, right when we were getting into it, has a bunch of tolerances on it. Yeah. So we provide them the 3D file, and then we provide them all the tolerances. So those two kind of went together, and then they said, this is our tolerances that we'll work with, and Zach and I kind of joke about it that we were putting these tolerances down. We're like, they're going to bill us more and stuff like that, and then they accepted them all.
They're probably laughing back at the office like, we could do this by hand.
Even further.
Right, just have a guy out there with a chisel and be all set. So yeah, no, it was. They did it all, I assume, like a CNC or an EDM, type of machine. So.
Did you guys literally Google mold makers, mold manufacturers? How did you find this company, and where did they finally reside?
So we did a nationwide search. We used Google, and we had a big list. And a lot of our need was, immediate quotes. So it was really nice to see quotes right away. We had a couple. We had 2 or 3 in Maine that we quoted out.
I feel bad. You probably remember the names better than I did. But we were definitely, when we started, we were pretty dead set on made in the United States, and the first 3 companies we met with were in Maine, and even the Advanced Manufacturing Center at Orono, just kind of talking, so.
Yeah, so yeah, we did that evaluation, and there was, the prices were, pretty comparable. Everything was, pretty expensive. We were kind of worried we weren't going to be able to make it viable. And then there's this company in Ohio, and we ended up searching into them more, and it ends up that they mold in China. So we ended up going with them. So we are manufacturing in China, but we have that direct, representative in the United States that we go through in order to talk. So we're kind of on the 24-hour cycle. It's a little bit inconvenient at times, but it worked out for us as far as, cost and everything else. But we're also, trying to also explore coming back here eventually, if we can make all the numbers work. So, yeah.
Yeah, some companies specialize in rapid prototyping, where they're like, we'll make you a mold, but it's only good for, 1,000 or 5,000 parts. So it's cheaper, the parts are a lot more expensive, but it's good for prototyping. So that was a big business decision. We ended up, and even ICO had, a more rapid prototype mold guaranteed for like 10,000 parts, or a lifetime mold. So we're like, well, here's how much we're saving doing this. What are the odds we got it right? It's gonna be expensive either way to redo it. So we went right off the bat with a single cavity lifetime mold.
And we've blown by the cap of the other mold that we were considering. So,
Yeah.
so it worked out pretty good, for now. So, yeah.
Any other questions?
Sweet.
Well, thank you so much to Lockout Labs. That was spectacular, and what wonderful insight, too. So thank you so much for joining us this evening. Thank you for everybody that joined us this evening. Thank you for those that are watching at home. I would like to just remind folks that Small Business Week Waterville is May 1st to the 9th, kicking off on Wednesday, May 1st from 5:30 to 7:30, the second annual Pardon the Innovation and Entrepreneur Spotlight with a keynote by Derek. He was here earlier. That should be lovely. On Friday, May 3rd, Pachakacha 31. Mr. Duguay will be the MC. Also a great event. Monday, May 6th, beginning at noon, you can hear from Maine's new commissioner at DECD discussing Maine's strategic plan for economic development. That same day, Monday, May 6th, from 4 to 5:30, monetize your idea in 5 steps and $500 at Thomas. Thank you again to Mike Duguay. Tuesday, May 7th at 9 a.m. from 5 p.m., first of its kind Maine virtual job fair. You can, hosted by Central Maine Growth Council. You can find more information about that at centralmaine.org/Maine Virtual Job Fair. Please join us for that. Tuesday, May 7th, 1 to 2, and from 2:30 to 4. If you're looking about QuickBooks and financial statements, we have wonderful speakers by Allison Watson locally here, Maine SBDC, as well as a CPA. Wednesday, May 8th, from 4 to 5:30, how to start an e-commerce or Amazon.com business via Mike Duguay at Harold Alfond Institute for Business Innovation. That will be located at Waterville Public Library. Wednesday, May 8th, from 5 to 6:30, get some more insight on Waterville's Opportunity Zone program and the Opportunity Zone workshop with an overview by CPAs and the IRS. And Wednesday, May 8th, from at Railroad Square. I'm almost done, one more. Thursday, May 9th, from 5 to 6:30, capping off Small Business Week. Building from a bird's eye view, which is the next tech night, discussing about drones and how they're used, particularly in the construction industry. So please join us the second Thursday of every month, and thank you so much for joining us.
I think you just mentioned that live drone demo will be thrown in here. It's going to be awesome. That's May 9th.
Thank you. With a live drone demo. So drone enthusiasts, this one's for you. So thank you again for coming out, and we hope to see you next month.